to current geopolitical realities. The Gambia stands by Africa's demand for 2 permanent seats as well as 2 non-permanent seats, as clearly articulated in the Essilwini Consensus and SIT declarations. For how long, Mr. President, will the international community continue to ignore the legitimate right and aspiration of a continent of 53 states, all members of the General Assembly? The calls have been very loud and very clear, but some Western powers continue to ignore them. This must end, or you will see a very dignified, determined and independent Africa assert her legitimate rights worldwide in her own way.
In this great period of transformation, nothing better narrates the world's darkest past to its triumph over colonialism and terrorism than Professor Jammeh's captivating story, which spanned over 20 minutes. It contrasts President Obama's threats and promises and strengthened President Dilma Rousseff's protests over state espionage, while justifying the Gambia's total rejection of homosexuality and acts associated with it.
We want a brighter future for humanity and the continuous existence of humanity on this planet. Therefore, we will never tolerate any agenda that clearly calls for human extinction. Mr. President,
world leaders were told to focus on the issue at hand and not to be drilled by this ever-growing taste for power and dominion. Conflict prevention should be at the heart of the world's most diverse body, said the Gambian leader, and the post-2015 development agenda must indeed set the world on a new path. The First Lady herself was in the midst of it all, beautifully gracing meetings with spouses of the attending delegates. The Minister of Basic and Secondary Education, Fatou Lamin Faye, represented her in several meetings.
One was the STEM meeting. The STEM is the science, technology, and engineering and mathematics initiative. So there's a group that is advocating for girls to be in those areas, and they're looking for funding, creating opportunities for partnerships to be built so that girls can be supported to undertake courses in those areas.
Earlier during his intervention at the high-level meeting on the Sahel, President Jammeh did urge leaders not to allow the Sahel region to remain a sanctuary of insecurity and instability. Abdinjai, Grts.
Schools have reopened across the country, and many of the children will be preparing for yet another round of early morning travels to their schools. However, this year's school calendar comes with a windfall for students travelers, as the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and the Gambia Transport Service Company agreed to provide buses at affordable cost for students in the Greater Banjul area. Aulu Mendi has more on that story.
The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education sometime in the past revealed 10% of students traveling considerable distance to schools within the Greater Banjul area are often late for lessons. One reason attributed to that is the transport constraints they are forced to endure. Another is the costly fares most of them could hardly afford and therefore resort to walking part of the distance to their schools. The situation is worse when afternoon students sometimes crowd in streets till 8 o'clock p.m. waiting for lifts to take them home. The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is saying this ugly situation has negative bearing on students' performance and therefore graciously stepped up to alleviate it by reaching an agreement with the Gambia Transport Service Company. Mohamed Jallo, the Director of Planning at MOPSI, has more on what that agreement encompasses.
The agreement entails the provision of bus services, school bus services to take students to and from school. And you realize that the school bus service existed before, but after a while it stopped due to various logistical issues. So we agreed that, as you realize, I think some months ago, to the support of His Excellency President, they bought some new school buses, which is clearly marked, so that to restart this service.
The bus service will begin Monday the 30th of this month. A statement from the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is saying the 8 buses will be on the road as early as 6 a.m. daily from Monday to Thursday to Saturday and will provide service the whole day to cater for students in the afternoon shifts. To those suggesting 6 o'clock a.m. is too early, the answer is simple. Each bus is expected to make 3 trips each morning between 6 and 8 a.m.
At the moment, there are 8 buses available plying different routes. One is going from, one is going from Birkama to Banjul through Tabokoto. There is another one, that is bus number 2, which is coming from Birkama through Olyundum, Shinchu, going down to Banjul and back. The third bus is coming from Bakau, Banjul and Bakau. Bus number 4 is from Tabokoto to Banjul. Number 5 going from Tabokoto, going right out. As you realize, there are many schools around the GRTS area here. Yes. So there is bus going from Tabokoto right down to Greater Banjul. Here to cater for those students. Then there is another one from Sukuta to Banjul. Number 7 from Bakote High School down to Banjul and back. And then bus number 8 is from Burfoot to Banjul. That will also go through Sukuta.
Charges for the buses are $5 only. $3 is short of the fares paid on commercial taxi. News both parents and students are likely to embrace.
Like I said, the previous service, one of the reasons why it couldn't continue was the high costs. So we had to discuss with the Minister of Finance, and initially the Minister of Education, the Minister of Finance themselves actually had discussion, and the Director of Budget at Finance is also very supportive in trying to provide a subvention to the ministry so that the costs of the service can be reduced. All right. Otherwise, if they want to charge like commercial fares, it's going to be expensive.
With the provision of school buses charging less compared to commercial taxi, both Education and the Ministry of Finance seem to have accomplished their part. It is now up to students and parents to utilize the rare opportunity accorded to them. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
We'll be back with news from the international scene in just a moment. Welcome back. Now, 4 days after Kenyan security forces ended the siege at a Nairobi shopping mall, there is still no complete and definite death toll. Parts of the building attacked by Al-Shabaab militants are still smoldering, and the Red Cross says it can't reach the bodies there. 67 people were killed in the standoff and dozens still unaccounted for. A source has revealed that a small store at the mall was rented by the gunmen for their accomplices a year before the assault. The Kenyan government praised its troops for a job well done in the aftermath, but now questions are emerging about the military's response and whether it could have saved more lives.
Carefully on the road to recovery, Ben Murwa says he's one of the lucky ones. A gunman shot him in the first moments of the attack, he says, but the bullet glanced off his knee.
One thing that still surprises me to date is they were so easy. They were so easy and they were so calm. They didn't appear to be bothered by anything, including a possibility of anybody retaliating. They didn't seem bothered at all.
He says 4 heavily armed gunmen, some in flip-flops, picked off people one by one.
They were not running. So he sees somebody trying to run, they shoot. They see another person, they shoot. They were not in a hurry.
In the chaotic first moments of the attack, private security, armed civilians, and a handful of police responded, quickly joined by Kenya's elite paramilitary forces. Witnesses to the operation say they systematically cleared the floors, bravely saving hundreds of stranded and terrified victims, and fought the attackers into one corner of Westgate. The Kenyan Army, or KDF, then moved in, and late Saturday, the government declared victory.
Hostages have been released and the rescuers and the KDF have taken control of the entire building.
but they weren't in control. Witnesses and security sources tell me that when the Kenyan